Much appreciated that you would carve time to join us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. As always, we're coming to you from studios provided by First Star Logistics that are extraordinary. And our special guest is extraordinary as well, Solomon Wilcots, great player with the Bengals, phenomenal broadcaster, now exceptional podcaster. So Solomon Wilcots has done everything he can do around football, and he's a football lifer. And he also played for the Cincinnati Bengals and Pittsburgh Steelers. So, a lot to talk about with respect to that Bengals-Steelers football game. Another loss by 8 points or less. Another one-score loss. 1-7 this year in those type of football games. Talked to Solomon Wilcots about that, about the great quarterback play that took place in that football game, and what to look for as the 5 remaining games for the Cincinnati Bengals will unfold. Solomon Wilcots, he's a good listen. Well, you made a very wise decision today. You decided to join us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. As always, we're coming to you from the studio that they provide for us, which is second to none. So we're very appreciative of that. And we're very appreciative of our guest today because Solomon Wilcots, great player at Colorado, great player for the Cincinnati Bengals, also played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So he's got a unique perspective on this football game. Bengals-Steelers, that big matchup, that division rivalry. He knows the organizations intimately well. On top of all that, this dude is as good a broadcaster, a communicator as there is in the business. He's a podcaster as well. There's nothing that Solomon Wilcots does not excel at. What's up, my man? How you doing, Solomon?
Hey, I appreciate that. Now I just celebrated my 60th birthday in October. And when I look back at my years of playing in the league, Dave, and covering the league, and having been in all 32 buildings, you get to know the coaches, you get to know the building, you get to know the people there, how they operate, the culture. And I've been really fortunate to have a very unique perspective and a very unique place to just kind of see how it all gets done with the various teams around the National Football League. And you mentioned my time with the Steelers, and of course, I'm a Bengal. I'd let everybody know I'm a Cincinnati Bengal. They're the team that drafted me, so you know how that goes. Look, there's only one team that drafts you, and so whoever that is, you ought to show some loyalty, some devotion there, because they were the ones who chose you. You didn't choose them.
They believed in you, man.
That's right.
Yeah, I agree 100,000%. And this battle has always been intense. Mike Tomlin at a very different level than a lot of us know Mike Tomlin. And, man, the 18th season with the Pittsburgh Steelers has never had a losing season. This is the 12th year now, I think it is, that he's had a winning season with this victory against the Cincinnati Bengals. What is it about Mike Tomlin? How does he connect so well to his players, Solly?
Yeah, I remember I first met him. It was Eric Bieniemy who introduced us. Because we're fraternity brothers. So Eric was like, "You got to meet Mike T. You're gonna love him. He's your frat brother." And I'm thinking, all right, we'll see. They were in Minnesota together. He had been the defensive coordinator there with the Vikings. And I'm gonna tell you, you don't come away liking this guy. You come away loving this guy. His energy is palpable. His intelligence. He's such a wonderful teacher. Just has a way with words, but it's authentic. There are certain people who can talk the talk, and it's understandable because it's about presentation, right? I think we all have to learn how to present ourselves and be able to sell our ideals. That's okay. But everything that he tells you, he believes it. And he's not saying anything that he doesn't believe. That's why he's so measured with his words. And I remember when I came in to do the very first year he was the head coach, I came in to do a game. I was talking to Mr. Rooney, and I said, wow. I said, he's just like the other two guys. And we were talking about Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher. I played for Coach Cowher when I was there, and he reminds you of Chuck Noll. He reminds you of Bill Cowher. They all were defensive coaches that kind of cut their teeth on the defensive side. They both appreciated toughness, hard. It was, you could tell he was just right for the Steelers. That was some 18 years ago, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And no one is living, at least not in Pittsburgh. They're not living to regret that decision. And I think it also shows you that, remember the Rooney Rule is named after their family. They wanted to put their name on it, but they also wanted to embrace things like diversity. People who have all these words for it, whether it's inclusion or whatever. At the end of the day, as my father once taught me, Dave, that two people can take two different roads going to the same place and still arrive at that same destination. That's really what diversity is about, is that you get to be who you are, I get to be who I am, but we still represent excellence. And I think that's what Mike Tomlin represents. I think that's what the Steelers in that hiring represents. And 18 years later, I think they've been proven right that you can do things differently. That's what diverse means, right? Different approach. You can do things differently and still have it mean excellence. It can still be the best that we have to offer. And that's why you have to look at him as a coach, what he's done at the quarterback position, how he's coached and breathed new life into Russell Wilson, so to speak. I think it's stuff that's worthy of Coach of the Year honors.
Man, Russell Wilson in this football game, Solly. Let's actually we'll get to both quarterbacks, but Russell Wilson's numbers. I mean,
yeah,
over 400 yards passing, 414 gross yards passing. His third 400-yard passing game. This was his second highest. 254 of those passing yards came after the catch. Either guys wide open and just running for a bunch of yards, or there's a missed tackle and he's running for a bunch of more yards. The Bengals missed 14 tackles again. They've missed 10 or more tackles in more than half of their football games. It's an epidemic. It's not, it's a virus. It's a non-tackling virus that's invaded this football team. It really is truly amazing. But Russell Wilson it looked like they were in the huddle with Lou Anarumo. It looked like he just knew exactly what he was looking at. Any adjustments that Lou made, he was right there, making adjustments to the adjustments. I got to give Smith, the offensive coordinator, a lot of credit, and the quarterback, Russell Wilson, a lot of credit, man. They knew exactly where to go at the football against the Cincinnati Bengals. And a lot of times, Solly, I couldn't tell if they were in man, if they were in zone, if they were in a combination coverage. It looked to me like communication, mental breakdowns, all kinds of issues in that back end. What did you see? I mean, you played that position so well.
Yeah, I saw some of those things. It was miscommunication, particularly when it comes to technique. So if you're blitzing, let's just say if you're bringing more than they can block.
Yep.
That means you're pressuring the quarterback. That means you're crowding the line of scrimmage, which means you're not going to have a lot of people in coverage, right? Typically, when you blitz and you truly bring more than they can block, that means you're going to be in man coverage. You have to be. Sometimes you can play zone blitz, but that's when you're pretending to blitz, forcing the team thinking you're going to blitz, but then you pull those guys out late.
Yep.
And they're actually working in your coverage. But when you actually do bring those guys, you got to play man, right?
Yeah.
But now playing man coverage behind that, when you lose a Dax Hill, when you lose a DJ Turner, who I thought both of those players were developing and they were trending. They were playing better this year than they did last year. They really were. They were really on the uptick. And then to lose them while they're in their early stage of development is really crippling, because now you got to go with some other players who probably not that ready to play. And I think it showed yesterday, because when you're blitzing It was at the sort of you can watch it at the fourth quarter, very last possession. I think second to their last possession, they hit Van Jefferson, and he is a catch and run. He's wide open. And he's running away from people after he catches it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was Josh Newton on the play, and I'm not to single him out, but he's a young player. He's in man coverage. You've got to take an inside technique. I know he's taught that. This is where the teaching has to connect with the player in a moment where if you're not playing the right technique, you're going to get crushed.
Yep.
The other teams, this is a professional league. They're going to make you pay. And it's that detailed. And this is where veteran presence and people who work very closely with the coaches are so very important. And you can't just, we'll get another one. And look, we keep going back to Jesse Bates because he was a guy that played it not only very well, but was like a coach on the field. Oh, by the way, he got a lot of turnovers, right? Which is what attracted them to Geno Stone.
Yeah.
And now in year number one, everybody thinks that it's supposed to just have Geno's playing good. I mean, the guy, when he comes in, he's getting there now. He's got to be better at some angles, and the tackling, I think that's exacerbated across the entire defense. But I'm not giving up on Geno because I still think he's a really good player, and I think he could be very good as we move forward. There's no doubt in my mind on that. It's just that you got to get all 11 guys on the same page, and that's where you saw the breakdowns that you mentioned. We're blitzing. We're supposed to be in man coverage, but we're not taking away anything. You're not in press coverage. You're not jamming the guy. You're 10 yards off, and you're coming in pressure. You're just going to let the quarterback throw it to the guy. I mean, you cannot do that. You cannot play any kind of coverage from off if you're blitzing because the ball's coming out quickly, Dave. It's coming. It's a 3-step drop. That ball's coming out because the quarterback's not going to get hit. He's getting rid of it now, which means you got to be in closer proximity to the receiver at the time they snap the ball. We're not disrupting the receivers and the tight ends as they're attempting to run routes. They're running with impunity over the middle of the field. For instance, everything that I've been taught about how you play pass coverage in our league, close off the middle of the field.
Yeah.
We're letting guys run right in there. I mean, there's visible throwing lanes, not just to one, but to multiples. And I could tell you that's not how it's being taught. I have high regard and high respect for Lou Anarumo, that there's no way that it's being taught that way. But when you have a lot of guys doing new learning, this is what it looks like. I could tell you right now, pass coverage in our league is one of the most complicated things that, when it comes to playing professional football, because these quarterbacks are good. The wide receivers are all good. And so it's got to be done collectively. And that's the problem. If you get one guy who's not right, or a couple of guys who maybe they didn't jam or sort of impede the release of the wide receiver, which we're not doing a good job at. If you're not doing that, you're not disrupting the timing of the passing routes. And that's the one thing that you have to do is you cannot have quarterbacks and receivers operating on time and in rhythm when it comes to the passing game. If you're not disrupting that rhythm, you're going to get picked apart. That's what the Bengals offense is doing to other defenses, right? That's what Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are so good at, the rhythm. That's why they're getting 300, 400 yards passing. Because when you operate with that, defenses, we give you something like a pass rush to disrupt that. We say that you can jam the wide receiver at the first 5 yards to disrupt that. You get to hit them. Yeah. Right before you get, so you have to use those things. So when I see us blitzing, but then playing from off 10 yards deep, not taking an inside technique or position to allow that easy slant route, I know that's not being taught because there's no one would teach it that way. And so, but we keep doing it time after time. Now, the tackling is a whole nother issue,
right?
Because we have guys that are too high. They're coming up to tackle and they're too high. Like that's why it's like they're on skates. I just missed the guy. They're running past people. You can cut back on them. You can outrun them. You can run through them. It's like they should not ever be able to cut back on you. They should never be able to run through you. And they should never be able to just run right by you. So those are the three things that every runner, that's their only options. They either can run over you, they either can cut back on you, or they can just outrun you because you have a poor angle.
Right.
Now every time you draft players, you're drafting what? Guys who have speed, guys who have physicality, meaning they're not going to get run over. If you have speed, you're not going to get run by, right? And if you let someone cut back on you, that's because you were not willing to embrace contact, because that's going to be one heck of a collision. They go to cut back and you anchor right there. That's going to be one heck of a collision. That means you're turning it down a little bit.
I mean, I watched.
This is about technique more than it is about talent.
Yeah.
Tackling is always about want to, not how to.
When I watch the Bengals defense, it's like I'm big on the football geometry, the angles and stuff.
Yes.
And man, I mean, not many guys are getting a passing grade in football geometry. The way they're approaching for the tackle, the way they're playing angles in the passing game. I mean, it's just their angles are so off, man. It's I don't know if they're underestimating the skill set in terms of speed and ability of these people. I just really don't know. But I mean, it's so prevalent. I mean, they're giving themselves minimal chance or no chance at all because the football geometry is so bad.
I start with myself every time I critique any player, because I had to do that, and I just like, could I have made that tackle? Would I have made that tackle? And I'm gonna tell you right now, I was hard on myself as a player. I didn't make every single tackle. I'll be the first one in there.
You made a bunch of them though, man.
But I could tell you what I didn't do. I didn't turn it down.
Yep.
When they came up through, I tried to get there.
Yep.
As fast as I could, as angry as I could,
right,
and trying to inflict as much pain on the runner as I could.
Right.
That's the mentality that you have to have. Now you've got to bring with that energy. You got to bring technique. You got to be over your feet. You got to have really good balance, but you have to know how to move almost like a cat. That's sort of in that low position, ready to spring when you go to make a tackle. And you cannot get over your feet and then let somebody run by you. You can't be so slow coming in that you're worried about them cutting back that now they get to run with speed right around you. And you got to have enough bend in your knees where that when contact is made, they can't run over you. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Now, this is the professional league. This is the NFL. I wonder, how did you get here if you can't tackle? Like I really like, didn't we go to college for that? Didn't in high school? I know in Little League they taught you how to tackle. I know in high school, if you had a decent coach, they made you tackle.
Right.
But you know what happens? We got to our league now, we don't tackle in practice. We don't tackle in two-a-days. Oh, well, we don't even have two-a-days.
Right.
Now you see what I'm saying, right? We don't work on these things. We literally, as coaches, we give the players the benefit of the doubt. That when the game breaks out, you're going to make that play, aren't you? Because they don't tackle in practice. You know that. You can't go and run up and tackle Jamar Chase or Chase Brown to the ground. But you should be approaching it with the footwork and with the mindset and with the intensity, working on your angles, your drive angles. Everything should be right down to the T, except spring loading and attacking on the hit. But you got to work on these things so intently in practice. No coach can stand over you and hover over you to make you do it. You got to do it on your own, because they just don't practice with that physical mindset anymore. They don't do that in any team, all 32 teams. Okay, most of them don't even have pads on in practice. You know that.
I do, but here's Mike Tomlin. After the Cleveland fiasco, they felt like they should have won that football game. Wednesday's practice, hey, men, we're going full pads.
That's right.
And he put him in full pads, and he's got some old school to him. There's no question about that. But it's like, We are taking care of business a little differently this week, men. We're putting pads on, and we're going to get back to basics, football fundamentals. It's all about blocking and tackling. And I'm not saying they were tackling, but they were fitting, not taking them to the ground. But I mean,
No, he made them hit.
Man.
He made them hit to the point of contact. I know that for a fact.
Oh, absolutely.
And you all, I think
line
you get
play
maybe
was live,
20
man.
of those.
Live in the line, boy.
Yeah, you may get about 20 of those, right, during the course of a season, I think.
Yep.
And you have to be judicious how you use them. But every now and then, when I was in Pittsburgh, I remember whenever we got ready for a Monday night game, and Merrill Hodge and I, we talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
Monday night game. Now, they did this going all the way back to the days of Chuck and O. They won 4 Super Bowls, so I couldn't argue with what we were doing because I would say to Dick LeBeau, are we getting ready to – because we're bringing mouthpiece. He was like, bring – so Saturday night, the game starts Monday night at 8 o'clock.
Right.
48 hours to the moment
right.
of a Monday night game. That's when we were on the practice field Saturday night with mouthpiece and going goal line on a Saturday night. Bill Cowher was like, men, get ready to bring it. He got you ready to play.
Right.
And we were hitting on a Saturday night for a Monday night game. He called himself being generous because he's like, you got 48 hours to recover, So, yeah. But I appreciated Coach Cowher for that. I really did. I appreciated him. He knew for some of us defensive guys, that's what we need to get ready to play.
Yeah.
And you never had to worry about being ready to play with Coach Cowher. I could tell. That's why the guy's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he got you ready to play. He gave you the mentality. He helped you arrive at that point to do the things that are very tough and difficult to do on a day-to-day basis. He helped you with that. He helped create an environment for that. And Mike Tomlin's wired pretty much the same way.
No, God, my story on that is Forrest Gregg, Super Bowl 16 year in 1981. We went down to New Orleans and laid an egg, man. We get beaten 17-7. Should have never lost that football team. Well, it's 5-3. We fall to 5-3. Forrest Gregg says, we come back and Wednesday's practice. He goes, man, it's full pads as usual. We're talking live. We're talking goal line live. Live tackle. Yeah. I mean, 20 minutes of live goal line scrimmaging. And then right after that, the month of November hits, we go 5-0. We have the November to remember. And nobody's within 13 points of us. It started with that. His response after laying an egg, 17-7, was like, all right, you're going to play like that? We're going back to basics, man. We're going back to training camp. Come on, you guys, let's start playing some football that you're capable of playing. I mean, it made an impression on me, man. I'm going to share a story.
I'm going to share a story with you that tells you that the good coaches understand that the physicality is an important part.
Right.
And it starts with the psychology and how sometimes you got to help players with this because it doesn't come to everyone naturally. Like when you watch these games being played in the snow, it hurts. It hurts.
Right.
Not everybody wants to be out there. It's their job. They're going to do it. But everybody wants to be there. You've got to train for that.
Yep.
And I'm covering college basketball. I cover the NCAA tournament every year. I was working at ESPN and with CBS Sports. And so I was covering Michigan State Spartans. Tom Izzo. And people don't realize this. Tom Izzo and Steve Mariucci were high school teammates on the football team together in Michigan, right? They grew up together in Michigan. They played for the local high school team. And Tom Izzo's a football guy.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. That's why his basketball player, that's why Draymond Green plays basketball like a football player.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Because he was coached by Izzo to be that way.
Yep.
So I'm preparing for an interview with him, and I'm reading how he at one point during the season, they weren't rebounding very well. In fact, they were struggling to rebound. Yeah. He was like, "Oh, I know how to fix that." He came out, he made them put on shoulder pads and helmets. And for 2 hours, all they practiced for the whole practice was rebounding. and he would throw the ball up, and the guy who had to have it and got it, okay, you get to sit out. Next. I mean, if you didn't show toughness, you were going to stay in there until he developed some toughness.
Yeah.
And you couldn't call 911 or call some regulatory body at the NCAA to get out of it either.
Or your mama.
That was the year that, remember, the Flint boys, they went on to win the NCAA championship.
Wow.
This toughness thing, it's not just something that we throw around as former old guys who used to play, Dave. You know that. Mm-hmm. It's real. This is the time of year, particularly in the NFL in November, December. This is when it shows up the most. Yep. And if you haven't signed up for it, if you're not ready for it, the coaches have to be able to help you get there. And if it's not a shared agreement between the coaches and players, I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen.
All right, we got to get to a guy who, in my mind, is one of the toughest players on the football team, as well as the most talented player. Joe Burrow is a tough son of a gun, man.
Yeah, man.
And you got Russell Wilson completed 76.3% of his passes. Joe Burrow completed one less. They both had 38 attempts. Burrow completed 28. Wilson completed 29. 74% plus. 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, quarterback rating 112, and loses. And I mean, this isn't the first time. I mean, Joe Burrow, he's got 5 losses this year where he's thrown the ball for 300 or more yards, 3 touchdown passes, 5 losses, the most in NFL history.
Most in NFL history, yeah.
And it's only 12 games in. I mean.
And those teams are all playoff teams, by the way.
Those
teams are still winning teams. Like that. Like that's what you need to understand. Like, so it defies the quarterback's production, and the win-loss record kind of defies logic, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you and I both know it really speaks to a greater thing here. It's always been a team game.
Yeah.
It's always will be a team. And Joe knows this. Like, he was raised by a dad who played on the defensive side of the ball. He had 2 older brothers who played on the defensive side of the ball. He played on the defensive side of the ball all through his little league and high school career.
Right.
This dude played defensive back. He was a bad dude.
He was a hit, man.
He still is. In my mind, he still is a bad dude.
I agree.
He gives this team every ounce of himself. And, he'll sacrifice his body to get that ball. And he threw that jump ball pass to Jamar Chase. He knew he was getting ready to take it. He took the hit.
Yep.
I mean, that's what he's willing to do to help this team win. Look, he understands it. He's going to keep giving his best, but it's a team game. Right. The other 53 guys, everyone's got to really up their game. There's other levels to this. And I thought Zach Taylor finally said it. He said defense got to play better. That's what he said yesterday. He said it. And that's not pointing fingers. People need to understand that in our game, it's called accountability. To not say it is to pretend like you don't even know the answer or have the answer. The elephant is in the room, right? And so it's not like you're being a bad guy. Now, when you start naming names of a player or trying to be derogatory towards a player, that's the kind of pointing fingers that you need to avoid if you're going to stay bonded as a team, if you don't want to become fractured. But you can point out the areas where the team has to improve. That's the coach's job. It's not necessarily the player's job. I like the way that Joe answered it. He says, look, I feel like I got to play at my peak performance every single week in order for us to win the game. I didn't do that today. Bam. That's how you answer that. He put the onus on himself to be better. And that's really all from a media perspective when you're a player, because I've done media training with players. That's really all you should talk about. Speak about your job. Speak about yourself. Don't bring other teammates into it, other areas of the football team into it. Don't point at the coaching staff. Only point at self. I thought Joe Burrow handled some really tough questions very, very well. I think he knows he's doing all that he can do, but he's going to keep demanding more of himself.
It is remarkable, though, because I remember Kenny Anderson. I remember Boomer Esiason saying, you know what, my numbers – we're winning games. People are going to look at Joe Burrow's, record. He did take them to a Super Bowl, but I mean, other seasons it's like maybe 500. Now this season, sub 500. It's like his numbers aren't translating into wins, and that's all he cares. He said, "All I care about is wins." I mean, that's it. All he cares about is wins because he knows. I mean, quarterbacks, great quarterback, they're not going to die. People are just going to look at the win-loss record of his decade plus or whatever. Say, yeah, he was all right. Then you dive into his numbers. Oh, he was unbelievable, even though they didn't have a great team record. Because, like you say, it's a team sport. It's not an individual sport. And he totally gets it, and he's totally immersed in it. I thought that Russell Wilson and Joe Burrow both put on a clinic of off-platform throwing. I mean, on the move, throwing the football. Joe Burrow, that jump pass, how about the 145-degree angle? He dumps the thing off he's totally off platform. He's on an angle that's crazy, accurate ball. I mean, these guys are unbelievable. They're not having time to set their feet, transfer their weight in this. I mean, it's amazing to watch how good they are. And they complete like 75% of their passes in so doing. It's crazy.
It was amazing. It was amazing by both quarterbacks. It makes you wonder, why are the Denver Broncos paying about $30+ million of Russell Wilson's salary to play for somebody else? And this is probably the biggest heist of any team of the Pittsburgh Steelers to get Russell Wilson and have Denver Broncos paying that large salary so that he can play for them. I mean, that really is, it's genius by Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Russell Wilson has found his confidence again. He's back to being the player that he was in Seattle.
Yep.
This goes to show you that players can't overcome bad coaching. You just can't. Or even coaching that maybe isn't totally bought into you, because I wouldn't call Sean Payton a bad coach.
Right.
I just don't think that he was 100% bought into Russell Wilson.
Right.
But Mike Tomlin his value as a coach is being able to pull the best out of players. I'm telling you, you could see it right now. It's very palpable in the game that we saw on Sunday between Joe Burrow and Russell Wilson. I thought it was excellent quarterback play. And if you're on the defensive side of the ball, look, I guarantee you Pittsburgh's not happy. Even though they scored on defense, they had a couple of strip sacks and an interception. They're not happy with the way they covered in their secondary, right?
Right.
Joe shredded them.
Yep.
And but if you don't adhere to all the right principles and good technique, you don't have a chance against some of these top quarterbacks. They're going to hang 300 on you, and they're going to have multiple touchdown passes on you. Got to get better at closing off the middle of the field, pushing the ball to the boundary. When the ball travels further to the boundary, better things happen for you defensively. You let quarterbacks throw the ball right down the middle. Every single quarterback could tell you the easiest throws are the ones right down the barrel. They want to be able to step up into the pocket and drive the ball down the field. If they've got to get outside, they're going to throw it to the sideline. Ball's in the air longer. Most of your pick six comes when the ball is thrown on the boundary. And that's what you have to be able to do. The best defenses force quarterbacks to throw the ball toward the boundary, towards the out-of-bound marker, not toward the end zone. So always remember that.
To your point, Solly, Pittsburgh had 4 different receivers generate 54 yards or more. The tight end Freiermuth in the middle of the football field, 68 yards on 6 catches, targeted 7 times. The running backs targeted 10 times, 10 catches for a combined 109 yards. Just that little check down that Russell Wilson kept checking it down, boom, take it, and yards after catch.
And they were breaking tackles when they did catch it.
Right, absolutely. So you have 16 catches on 17 targets to those guys in the middle of the football. That's easy pickings, and you're talking about over 109. You're talking 177 yards. Just little pitch and catch, just little tosses in the middle of the football field. To me, it was almost like Russell Wilson and Arthur Smith were in the Bengals huddle, and they were getting information pre-snap. It was amazing to me. But the Hard Knocks thing that's going to happen, covering the AFC North, I know what that first Hard Knocks episode is going to be. We got 2 quarterbacks that put on a historic performance. One is comeback player of the year. One just threw his hat in the ring for MVP. I mean, it's going to be the Russell Wilson, Joe Burrow show, that first episode of AFC North Hard Knocks down the stretch here.
Yeah, they threw for a combined total of over 700 yards, 6 touchdown passes. Both guys completed over 70% of their passes on the day, and went up and down the field and just continued to create big plays. It was a fun game to watch. I just wish we played better on defense and not gave up so many big plays. I'm sure the Steeler fans felt the same way. But yeah, this AFC, Hard Knocks, AFC North, that's going to focus on the division. I think it's about to. They have cameras everywhere, man. They're about to expose some things that maybe you don't want seen if you're one of those teams that's not going to the playoffs, because that means they're going to capture some pretty sad moments. The Bengals are going to play some really good defenses going down the stretch. Remember, the Tennessee Titans, they may not have a winning record, but they have a really good defense.
They do.
Cleveland Browns, they may not have a winning record, but they have a really good defense. Vance Joseph, really good friend of mine. The defense for the Denver Broncos is one of the best defenses in the NFL. And then we got Pittsburgh again.
Yeah.
So in 4 of our next 5 games, we're going to see a top-notch defense. And that's going to be formidable, which means it's going to be tough to win some of these games. It's going to be tough to rely solely on the offense if you think you're going to win these games. We got to begin to play in a more comprehensive way. Defense has to hold up. Special teams has to hold up. This is one of those years where we decided that we couldn't hold the kick when we needed to. We couldn't make the kick when we needed to. We couldn't get the stop on defense when we needed to. Those other facets of the game, that's where things have kind of gotten away from us. And then the losses have started to mount. And you find yourself now 12 games in, holding a 4-8 record, when you know that your talent and your team is much better than that.
Absolutely. And how about Chase Brown's development? I mean, this kid on 15 touches had 100 scrimmage yards yesterday. He's tracking for 1,300 scrimmage yards and 12 scrimmage touchdowns between rushing and receiving. I mean, he's not only – he is a blur, man. He gets to top speed in about a step and a half, but he's much better blitz pickup, running routes, catching the football. He's more of a complete guy now. He's really showing himself.
I was talking to some friends about, they were like, look how well Joe Mixon is doing. And I'm really happy for Joe.
Yep.
I think he set an NFL record yesterday with 6 consecutive road games of over 100 yards rushing and a touchdown scored in the same game. First player in NFL history to do that. Listen, if Joe Mixon was on the team right now, Cincinnati Bengals would have the same record, because we pretty much have the same production with Chase Brown. Chase Brown is producing at a very high level. I think Joe's playing very well for Houston because they rely more on the run, right? Cincinnati Bengals have the 3rd lowest run play percentage in the NFL. They run the ball about 37% of the time. They're literally running it 3 out of 7 plays and throwing it 7 out of 10. So, it's a production's about opportunity. And so Joe Mixon's having better numbers with Houston because he's getting more opportunity. With what we do in the Bengals offense, they don't run it nearly as much. That's why they needed a runner and a pass catcher and someone who can make you miss in space, who has juice, right? Like Chase Brown. Chase Brown's generating a lot of his own offense, by the way. He's the guy that turns the check down into a first down. He's the guy that can accelerate around the corner. When he's given a crack, he creates more spacing. And I think he does help the tight ends get open at the second level, because that linebacker's now got a hug closer to Chase Brown and maybe can't get the depth that he wants on a crossing route from Jamar Chase or a crossing route from Mike Gesicki. So, it's just because a player is doing better, seemingly better elsewhere, doesn't mean that our team is missing that same production. I know you understand what I'm saying here.
Absolutely.
I do think Chase Brown has been phenomenal for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah. I mean, you look at it, I thought the Bengals offense performed at a high level. I thought special teams, with the big block. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers had blocked 3 field goals. I think another one was nullified by penalty. The Bengals got the blocked field goal with Osai, I mean,
right.
and that turned into a 6-point play, taking 3 away from them and getting 3 yourself. I wish that they had cashed in for a touchdown in the red zone. They were 4 for 5. That was the only time they didn't cash in the red zone.
That's
But
right.
I mean, I thought 2 of the 3 phases played winning football, but the third phase, just got overwhelmed by the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers scored 27 points in the first half.
Yeah.
That's more than they've scored in 8 football games this year. They had 27 on the board. That's more than they scored in 8 games. I mean,
the 44 points, they hadn't scored that many points in the last 6 seasons.
Right.
So you have to go back to the heyday of Big Ben Roethlisberger when he was slinging it all over the place since they scored as many points. And that's on our defense. There's no doubt about that. And I'm going to tell you, look, Najee Harris, do you know the Pittsburgh Steelers did not pick up his 5th-year option?
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
You know why?
Why?
Because he's not elusive. He's not explosive enough. We made him look elusive and explosive in Sunday's game, though. That's what I'm trying to tell you. We couldn't tackle him. He cut back on us. He outran people. I'm like, some of the holes were gaping holes, but I was just like, we're even making Najee Harris look like he's the second coming of Franco Harris, for crying out loud.
Unbelievable. And in the Pittsburgh Steelers, Solly, they threw to set up the running game. I mean, they threw it 12 more times than they rushed it. You don't see the Pittsburgh Steelers doing that much.
No.
I mean, in the early stages, they get the running game established. I think they knew, though. I mean, when they came out, when Russell Wilson saw certain looks, he checked to that pass. I mean, he checked it and just ripped them up. And, I mean, they end up throwing to set up their running game. The Bengals always do. I mean, the Bengals are a throw-first football team. Pittsburgh Steelers aren't a throw-first football team, but in this football game they were. I mean, they were big time. Because that's where all the problems are. When I look, and the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is not going to be happy, but they got 2 Hall of Fame defensive linemen, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt.
That's
right. Both of those guys made impact plays. I mean, you got Cameron Hayward at a sack, and then another time he tips a ball that T. Higgins has to readjust. He tips it, it ends up in an interception. Big play by Cam Hayward. TJ Watt comes a strip sack. Higbee gets one coming off the edge in a strip sack. So they had Highsmith couldn't go. So I mean, 3 of their 4 defensive linemen, even though it was not a largely impressive game for the defense, each one of those defensive guys made a play that impacted a football game that resulted in really helping the offense win the football game.
Yeah, these guys are some young players. You're talking about drafting and developing, because Tim Crumry and I always are talking about some of the Wisconsin players. That's where he went to school. And there's Nate Herbig is a Wisconsin kid.
I was saying Higbee, Herbig.
Yeah. He's a really good player. And then the Peyton Wilson kid was a 3rd-round pick this year out of NC State, who was everybody's top linebacker on most boards, but he had a knee injury. So they're starting to, get some really good players plugged into this defense, young, developing players who are going to be household names. And it's an arms race in our division, particularly when it comes to talent, because we know Andrew Berry does a good job for Cleveland. I think he's done a good job in the draft. Pittsburgh always does a good job. Baltimore does a good job. Bengals do a good job. That's why these 4 teams are so good. I mean, people look at this division, these 4 teams are stacked with talent, and they continue to replenish with talent. That's why when you get those players, you got to try your best to keep them. If you draft them, you want to do your best to keep them. But you already know that if you let them go, you better have somebody better waiting. You better have because there's going to be significant drop off. And I think just managing your success is sort of a new phase for our organization. There's no doubt about it. You have these good players. When do you let them go? When do you keep them? And then understanding that you can't really let them go if you don't have someone to take their place, particularly as a leadership component. But that's, you and I both know that's a learning curve. And that's, every organization goes through these growth moments where you have to be able to say, okay, we missed on that one. We're not going to do that again. And I think we've got the quarterback and we've got some good players around that quarterback. Now it's about really understanding who we're playing against every single week. The Steelers have great pass rushers, Hall of Fame pass rushers.
Yep.
Cleveland Browns have Hall of Fame pass rushers.
Yep.
The Ravens almost always have a great pass rush and good run defense. You better be able to execute in those areas or they will make you pay.
How about Cam Hayward, just turned 36 years old? 6 quarterback sacks now from the defensive tackle position in 12 football games. Are you kidding me? And on top of being an unbelievably dominant, run play, this guy is just an incredible football player. I mean, he's amazing. 36 years old.
And he doesn't want to quit. Like, he's fighting to stay on the team. Right. They didn't even really want him back this year. And he's like, no, he loves being a Steeler. He's literally begging them to keep him. And now he's playing his tail off just so it makes it a hard decision for them to make, So you got to give him a lot of credit for that. Prideful man, very prideful.
Extremely prideful. All right,
and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.